The signings are just rolling in, everybody. Late night, early morning. The Sixers, they're keeping us busy. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers emergency podcast here as the Sixers add another big. We are presented by Xfinity. Imagine that. Kyle Newbeck, Devon Givens, Bree, producing the show, the president of basketball operations, staying busy. And all of you, we appreciate you checking in the early morning as the Sixers add a big man to the mix of free agent signings. NBA champion from the New York Knicks, Ariel Hukporti, joins the Philadelphia 76ers. $3.6 million, Kyle, is what it is, to sign on a one-year deal.
3.4 is the number.
3.4 on a one-year deal to join the Philadelphia 76ers. Kyle, you did mention him on, I want to say, Monday, as his name became available late during our show of the New York Knicks not tendering a qualifying offer, allowing him to become an unrestricted free agent. We did focus a lot on the shooting big men, the big men that can stretch the floor. But for this one, a different type of player where he is similar in the mold of Adem Bona from just my time watching him, similar in the mold of Adem Bona of being an athletic big man. He has a high motor, can get up and down the floor, rebounds the basketball pretty well. Smart. He plays within the structure of the defense. He knows who he is. He doesn't try to do too much outside of what he's asked to do. His minutes were a little sparse because he's playing behind Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson in New York. But in this time that he did have to play some solid minutes, has gotten better, but there's still a lot of room for improvement to get better as a third year big coming into the league. So what did you think overall of this one? $3.4 million. 1 year, but also just a player.
Yeah, so I don't mind the player. He's a significantly better defensive rebounder than Adem Bona, like better hands. And that's something that we talked about ad nauseum last year. And so at the very least, we can sit here and we can say, all right, they have someone who brings a little bit something different on the defensive end while sharing some of the same qualities as Adem. I do kind of wonder if this signals anything about how the new regime feels about Adem, because I don't think this is a guy that you bring in and you feel confident like, oh, he can be the every night starter if Joel Embiid misses time. And that is a thing that you have to think about with any kind of big man signing that you make as the Sixers. And I would add on to that by saying, the number that he got is more than his minimum salary based on his years of experience. And so we don't know quite yet. I sent some texts out. We'll see if we find out in the next 24, 48 hours, whether this is part of that mid-level that they still had left or whether they are tapping into the biannual exception. That's going to become clearer as the rest of the moves come into place. So I don't like having to use more than the minimum on a guy who, while it might be a little more insulting than it sounds to call him a third big, because he's the third big on a team that had Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, who's, Mitchell Robinson's going to get paid. Karl-Anthony Towns is a big money player. So perhaps he's able to come here, continue to develop. He is still fairly young. I think he's either 23 or 24, not exactly sure on that one. But it's not someone that I trust to like, hey, the next 3 weeks, Joel's out they're managing his meniscus or he's sprained his ankle or whatever happened, got bird flu, whatever weird stuff is going to happen to Joel this year. I don't trust him enough to play him at like 25 minutes, 30 minutes a game. And I think it does say a lot about the big man market that he got more than the minimum, because we sat here yesterday and talked about you're picking through like 36-year-old Nikola Vucevic, probably on the high end. Yeah. And a lot of these other guys are just either old or have never been good. So at least this guy is a young, potentially developmental guy, but it is interesting. And I do wonder if maybe there's another, whether it's a trade or something else, another move that could be in the works here.
Yeah, because as we talked about, even players like Mo Wagner, not just you and Derek, but some Sixer fans in the chat bringing him up with other big men, that this is totally different from, as far as the money, where they probably because of what you mentioned earlier, the use of Nurkic getting $22 million, Jack Landale getting one for $14 million. That
Right.
Sure, you're probably going to get, even on a 1-year deal at a lower cost, you're still probably going to bump it up more than the minimum. Just a little bit of a scouting report to add to what we started things off with. From what I do know he's a fan favorite in New York. Whenever he got on the floor, they would call for him. He would get on the floor. They would like him. He does foul a lot, like Adem Bona, but not as much as Adem Bona, where we would see
really damning with faint praise on that one.
I mean, we gotta be honest and call it for what it is, for what we saw. Does foul out a little bit. Fan base really enjoyed what he did, but again, playing out there on the floor, teammates loved him. And he was one that really he improved from year 1 to year 2 for what he did, and you can see it. Marginal improvement, or gradual improvement as a young player from year 1 to year 2 for what he does, but a player that did get a little bit better. And the hands, a little bit better than Adem Bona. They're not the greatest, but they're better than Adem Bona when we talk about catching and catch radius and what he can do and all. Has a much better offensive game, where if there's a jump hook there, it looks way more functional than it is for Adem Bona, where we were worried about the work in progress, what it was going to look like. Hukporti can definitely do that. Still a lob threat as a player that can roll to the basket. You can throw it up at the front of the rim. He will go out there and catch it and finish that one as well. Decent, okay offensive rebounder, where he understands what he's doing, putting it back up and getting right to the mix. By getting a basket for his team. I think he is one that I agree with you that while he did start, there were some games where he did start. I remember in the early part of the season where he had to start a couple of games, and he looked fine. He looked fine in his minutes that he was out there with you. And then again, it's also about who's out there on the floor to help you out. And you know the team that they have that was surrounding him in New York. And now if you're looking at it being Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe that are out there with him, spoon-feeding him certain things, making sure he's good to go, he'll be fine. Defensively, again, he can move his feet on the perimeter similar to Adem Bona. But a lot of times what we would say he's kind of running around a little bit he's at 120 miles per hour every now and then, Adem Bona, where you want him a little bit more under control. Hukporti does have a little bit more of that, where he stays under control with what he's doing, stays in front of his man, doesn't reach he does reach a little bit, but not as much as Adem Bona, where he gets his hands caught and you pick up a little cheap foul there. I don't want to oversell it as the Sixer fans are going to love this role player guy, but they're going to, I think if he does what is asked of him as a backup and as a potential replacement starter for a game here or there, based on what we see right now between he and Bona, if he does get the nod, because we know that Nick Nurse, if you have the hot hand, Andre Drummond, Adem Bona, you're going to get the start or be the first guy off the bench for Joel Embiid. I think Sixer fans will be okay with it once they see how it all plays out and what they want to do with him as that type of big. So again, not overselling it as if he's something that he's not. We were talking about shooting big men coming into Philadelphia, Jack Landale, Mo Wagner, much better offensive-minded player. This is a defensive-minded player that still has a lot of room to grow offensively, that the Sixers are bringing in to play and challenge Adem Bona. I am very curious to see, as Kyle mentioned, what does this mean? What does this now mean for Adem Bona going forward? Because 2 years in, this is not the front office that drafted Adem Bona. This is the front office that inherited Adem Bona. And if they don't see a player there, a pathway where he's going to get better and be the one that they want to move forward with, this is a guy that, look, they're giving a 1-year trial run, but he is one that they selected and not Adem Bona. So I am curious to see that off of this move. Yeah,
and look, I think if they had a normal, consistently healthy max player at center, which is what you would hope for when Joel Embiid's making that type of money, we wouldn't have to hyper scrutinize a move like this, because you'd say, they got a rotational big. Like, I think at the very least, Hukporti is a playable rotational big with a good motor. He's a little bit bigger than Adem, and you say, okay, it's an option on the roster. It's somebody that if he's called into action because guys are in foul trouble, somebody gets hurt during a game, like he can eat some minutes. I think at the very least he's going to be able to do that. But the reason that we're like, okay, how much money are they using? Like, can he be a spot starter? Is because of the reality of Joel Embiid is a $60 million player who we don't know if he's going to be able to play even half the games in a season. And so you have to always evaluate these guys through the lens of what happens if he's called into action and has to play, 20, 25 minutes. And so then the limitations offensively, the foul proneness, things like that, those become real important parts of like, can they win a game tonight? So I'm fine with the player. I'm a little less fine that you have to use more than the minimum to get him. Right. And I'm just curious if this front office is comfortable where you have a 23-year-old Hukporti, still developing Adem Bona, depending on what happens with him. Like, is that your rotation without Joel Embiid? I think that maybe you do it. Maybe you just say we want to use the other money that we have, the few options that we have elsewhere. And so we're not going to pay a premium or pay a little bit more for like a Mo Wagner type of guy who does have a different offensive skill set. But then the risk you're running is your backup plan when Joel is out, and we all expect that Joel's going to miss time, is probably worse than it was in some years past. So we'll let the rest of the offseason play out. Fine player, a little bit overpriced for me, and at least does something slightly different than Adem in that I think he can grab the ball on defensive rebounds. And so that alone, after all the complaints we made there, is worth at least a little bit of a look for me.
And as the team continues to be put together, we know about the starting five now being put together for the Sixers. Your team's starting lineup may change, but the price of your internet will not. Check out the 5-year price guarantee from Xfinity. Kyle, with this one, we talked a lot about would Andre Drummond be back, maybe on a vet minimum. Right now, that doesn't look to be the case as long as these are the two behind him and there's no other move. So would you have preferred Andre Drummond on a minimum deal, albeit we know the money here now for Hukporti, but also we talked about only a minimum deal for Andre Drummond. And as a vet, that's, close. That's pretty decent money, or two and some change, about right around 3 because of years of service for him. Would you have preferred Drummond on a 1 year versus what you just saw here with Hukporti for 3.4?
It's a good question, and I know we've said like we would like to see them go another way. Drummond, the development he made as a shooter aside, but at the minimum, I honestly think I might have taken Drummond back, if only because. So we were talking about this a little bit in the Discord, and someone pointed out like, well, they can still use the biannual, and so you get a player that way. But my problem with whether you're tapping into the biannual or you're tapping into the mid-level here is that I would rather, with that, between $5 or $6 million that they have on the mid-level, I'd rather use all of that on one better player than say we're going to give Hukporti 3.4 and try to, cobble it together between like a couple different players, because I think you'll get a better player that way. I don't think when you turn the mid-level into like 3 slightly cheaper players, I think that just eats into the overall talent level that you're bringing in here. So I probably would have just tried to roll the dice on a minimum guy, whether it was Drummond or somebody else. That being said, we sat here and went through the list of names. The list of bigs out there is just brutal this offseason. And so unless you're willing to say, hey, we'll go out and we'll trade like a second-round pick, couple second-round picks for a more quality ascending backup, or you want to play the restricted free agency dance with someone like Musa Cisse, who, by the way, and we've talked about on the show, but he's an even more foul-prone player than either of these guys, right? He's out there just swinging away, and he only played, 13, 14 minutes a game for Dallas, so he's never proven up to this point in his first NBA season that he can come in and eat minutes. So I think it's a reflection of the marketplace as much as anything. So we'll give him a chance. I think he's someone you
100%.
rightfully said he was called a fan favorite in New York because he always comes in and plays hard, and I think fans will appreciate that. I just hope he plays hard and has learned a little bit from these last couple of years to avoid the foul trouble, because you're gonna have to eat some minutes out there, young man. Get ready.
He did play 54 games in year number 2, started 5 of those games. He only averaged 10 minutes on the season in that time. But again, as you said, he's playing behind Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson. So not a lot of starting opportunities there for him during the year. And that's just where, I mean, there's a few games where he had some all right moments. He even played, it was a blowout against the Sixers in the playoffs where he played 14 minutes. I think that was the closing game in that one. And I played 30 minutes against Charlotte in the season finale where he was 4 for 8. And we know that's a different type of game, but he played big minutes in that one. And if you go and look at the game log, you can see where he played some different games, some solid ones, 21 minutes, 3 for 4 from the floor, 22, 2 for 4. Again, a lot of being spoon-fed with some lobs because of the plays that they would run. Throw lobs right at the rim, make it very easy for him to convert those plays. And that's pretty much where it is for him. He just turned 24 in April, and he was a second-round pick for Dallas in 2024. Didn't play much in year number 1 with the Knicks. Played a little bit more for the Knicks in year number 2. And he does, I would say he was a top 3 candidate for post-championship celebration while he was in New York, because he was going off. Nick Vucevic, going back to the Orlando Magic, Kyle, $3.9 million.
Yeah, so that's relevant here that Vucevic just signed a $3.9 million deal. So that's an extra $500K on top of Hukporti made.
Yep.
Would you have rather had Vucevic at 3.9 over Hukporti at 3.4? Because that's not a huge difference. Actually, I need to check that. That could be, how many years of experience does Vuce have? You talk about what you think here, and I'll circle back on
between the
CBA
two
stuff.
Between the two, to your point, I would have been fine with Vucevic at 3.9, and you're also getting somebody that you feel like can start. Also, but as much as we gave Boston praise for trading for him at the deadline, gearing up for a playoff run, we also saw what it looked like against the Sixers. And he is offensive minded, as we know, which a lot of Sixer fans would lean more towards. But I think I would be willing to give this kid a chance instead of just running it back with Nick Vucevic at almost $4 million at that point. So I think I would just give Hukporti a chance.
The only thing I will say, because I had to double check, that is, I believe, the minimum for Vucevic, because 10 plus years of experience. This year, the minimum is just under 3.9, and I'm assuming that Shams, for the purpose of the tweet, is rounding up a little bit. So that's I believe, is a minimum signing.
Similar to what I asked you about Andre Drummond, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Look, I think Vooch has been pretty bad for a couple of years now. However, if it's the minimum versus using parts of, that's where it comes into I just give me a minimum guy, because I don't think any of these guys are very good. Granted, at least Hukporti is young, and you can talk yourself into, hopefully we can develop them and bring them along. But I just would not have wanted to use more than I needed to for this position specifically.
Different types of players, those two. And I don't think you're wrong in the answering for either, of just ready to why would you want an old guy to come in here, and when he is playing those extended minutes, maybe he's overexposed, but you have a young guy that's a little bit more inexperienced who could be overexposed in those extended minutes. What does this mean for the Sixers? Well, right now they have 2 backup bigs, Adem Bona and now former Knick Ariel Hukporti. We'll see what happens with Andre Drummond as the free agent period is just getting underway. We will be with you at 3:00 today. Derek, Kyle, myself, and Bree will be with you to talk about both Dean Wade and Ariel Hukporti a little bit more as the Sixers are being active in free agency, everybody. So our emergency pod was presented by Xfinity. Imagine that. Make sure you go sign up at Xfinity.com to learn more, where you can watch us in 4K, and you can watch your new look Sixers in the fall in 4K as well. Don't forget about Summer League coming up. You want to see LeBaron Fadlan in 4K in Las Vegas. We won't be there, everybody. We're staying back here to talk about the games from home. So, all right, we'll be back with you. By the way, another deal here, Kyle, before we go. Shams is saying that the Boston Celtics are signing Mike Conley on a 1-year deal in a backup guard role. So there you go. All right. We'll see you exactly. We'll see you at 3:00, everybody. Make sure you tune in. A lot to discuss. And also, will anything else happen for the Sixers by the time we see you there? Bree, thanks so much. Great job as always. For Kyle, I'm Devon. We'll see you at 3:00 right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.